All right, Friday morning, Chase Senior's in the house. We got a lot to get to. The Niners and the Cardinals go. Can the Niners run their record to 3-0 on Sunday? They'll be wearing the all whites. Let's talk about it. Off and running on the Krueger Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. We're also brought to you throughout this football season by Sleeper, and we'll make a Sleeper lineup and get you ready for the weekend. But Chase Senior is in the house. Always great to wrap with Chase, and we're going to talk a little Niners. And we're going to get into the rookies. We titled this thing, Where the 49er Rookies Stand After 2 weeks. Chase, good to see you. If I threw out to you just which rookie are you most excited about? Doesn't have to necessarily be who's been the best or who's got the biggest upside or who's been the most important. Just, you cover this team regularly. Who are you excited about?
Tough to pinpoint one because I really like what the Niners did in the draft class. And I talked about that back in April. I just thought that with the players that they brought in, the clear plan that they had, targeting the defensive side of the ball after losing all these players in free agency during the offseason, I just thought that with Robert Saleh's influence, they grabbed a couple of really intriguing players. And so I think I'm most surprised by in the early going, Marquis Siegel, just because he was selected in the 5th round out of Kansas State, North Dakota State transfer. I like the 4-3. I like the versatility, how he can play nickel, how he could play safety. It's just I didn't expect him to be a starter week 1, and I don't think anybody really expected him to start on the field week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks. And the way that he's been able to fly around, the speed in which he plays with, I know he got beat by Juwan Johnson on that good ball by Spencer Rattler in week 2, but that's a really tough assignment for him because Juwan Johnson is such a big tight end. But when you think about his future, how he's playing already, and the player that he can continue to develop into, and the style that he plays with alongside Malik Mustafa, who also plays fast, physical, downhill, I think the future safety tandem for San Francisco is very, very intriguing. And then you look at the jump week 1 to week 2 for Mikel Williams. I know you've never been too high on him, but I think you can see the player that he can become and how the Niners use him, right? Early downs as defensive end, later downs, defensive tackle. And he, in the first 2 weeks of the year, has been able to push the pocket, collapse the pocket. He's absorbed some double teams to open up some opportunities for defensive ends like Nick Bosa, Bryce Huff. The ability to play against the run, that was the strong suit. And he was supposed to do that right away. Develop as a pass rusher, but help this Niners porous rushing defense get better. And you saw in week 2 against the Saints, a couple of really nice plays, especially when he was lined up one-on-one against the tight end, threw him to the side, tackled Alvin Kamara for a loss. I like the selection of Upton Stout in the 3rd round. Smaller, but sticky coverage. Always played with a lot of swagger and physicality, plays bigger than his size, and he's been picked on a little bit the first 2 games of the year, but you also see the potential that he has. And then the week 1 to week 2 jump for a player like Alfred Collins, like 6'5", 330 pounds, a bunch of length, a bunch of girth at defensive tackle. He occupies a lot of real estate there. And so I think this Niners draft class in 2025 has the makings of being a really, really good one. And that's without including a player like Nick Martin, who obviously the game needs to slow down for him. But we were saying the same thing the last couple of years about D. Winters. Look at the jump that D. Winters has been able to take the first 2 games of the season. And so I expect that to happen with Nick Martin once he can throttle down and kind of temper some of the aggressiveness that he has. So San Francisco had to rebuild a little bit, and they had to tinker with this roster. They needed to hit on the 2025 draft class. They needed to hit on the 2024 draft class, and the early returns of both looking really, really good, Larry.
Yeah, no question about it. The Mikel Williams draft pick, it's just been so far, it looks really, really good.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is how much more he plays with the Niners than he played at Georgia.
Right.
I mean,
Less than 50% of snaps last year.
right. And
Yeah.
with the Niners, he was, I think, the second highest snap guy to Bosa. The Niners are using him on every play. I mean, it's like, I'm surprised this guy doesn't play special teams. I don't know if you saw the number, but the I just saw this today. The 49ers rushing success rate allowed for the Niners rushing success rate allowed for the 31 designed run snaps they faced this season when Mikel has been on the field is 25.8% rushing success rate allowed. The second number, 66.7%, is the 49ers rushing success rate allowed for the 21 designed run snaps they faced this season when Mikel has not been on the field. So, I mean, if you see that, I mean, it's been night and day. The presence that he has in the run game on early downs is undeniable.
Yep.
I would say Mikel Williams is very exciting, but if you said to me the most exciting, well, I'm really excited about Nick Martin. I'm really excited about Jordan Watkins. I'm really excited about Upton Stout. But if I had to say most exciting, I gotta go from week 1 to week 2 in the improvement of Alfred Collins.
Yep.
Alfred Collins in week 1 was getting kicked out of the club, turned around, booted off the line of scrimmage. At one point, he turned his back to the play and was like being pushed out backwards. He just looked like he'd never played before. And then this week against New Orleans, I thought his film was like 100 times better. I mean, he's playing with a bended knee. He's keeping his feet moving. He's playing with a hot motor and revving hot. He's playing with leverage, and he's not allowing himself to be blocked. So I'm really excited by the growth in Alfred Collins from week 1 to week 2, because if that's the trajectory of improvement that he's on, he is going to be a really, really good player before long. And then the other guy is Connor Colby. I mean, Connor Colby was a 7th round draft pick, and he looks like he's going to be a 10-year starter at guard. That's what he looks like to me.
Yeah, and I didn't include Connor Colby. Jordan Watkins, we'll see what happens with the calf injury that he suffered the other day in practice, but hopefully he can stay healthy because he was durable in college. But that's 4.3 speed and ball tracking ability and the ability to create after the catch that Jordan Watkins possesses. And all of a sudden, the Niners have kind of a logjam at the wide receiver spot, especially when Brandon Ayuk comes back. So we'll see what happens with him, but I'm a believer in the player, and I thought he was impressive during training camp and in the preseason. But with Connor Colby, I know you and I talk so much about the offensive line, and we nerd out about offensive line play because I think it's so important. And you agree with me that you can really determine games a lot if you can control the trenches. And Connor Colby over Ben Barch, huge upgrade. Now, I was a fan of bringing back Ben Barch, cheap price tag. I think they gave him a little over $1 million, and he played well in limited action last year when he had to replace Aaron Banks before, of course, he got hurt again, and that's been the MO on him, is that he just cannot stay healthy. But Connor Colby is a huge upgrade over Ben Barch, and I was so impressed with the veteran-like knowledge of the guard spot because he didn't play left guard at Iowa. He played right guard, and just the high cerebral football IQ type of feel that he had for the game in week 2 against the Saints. I mean, if you go back and just solely watch him with what he was able to do in his first extended action, he played so well, and it's how he did it, right? I mean, the PFF pass blocking grade was really good. It was above 80. He had the lowest blown block percentage among all of the Niners offensive line, and 5 of the 6 highest graded players for San Francisco in week 2 were offensive linemen. So that's telling. And I thought the offensive line just as a whole played so well in protecting Mack Jones because they needed to. He doesn't give you the mobility that Brock Purdy has. But, you know, with Colby, it's being able to block one guy, pass him off, and then block the other guy. It's the original block and then climbing to the second level. And for a guy who's 6'5", he had a really good relative athletic score, but he has such good bend and plays with such good leverage for a guy that's that size. Because usually when you play guard, you're a little bit shorter. You know, these are former offensive tackles who slide inside because they don't have the height or the length. But Colby is really tall, but he still plays with really good bend, which is a great sign for him. He just looks to be a really good scheme fit. And what's crazy is that he's further along now as a pass blocker than a run blocker. And coming out of Iowa, they did a lot of outside zone running the ball with the Hawkeyes. And so you thought he was going to be further along as a run blocker than a pass blocker. But I'll take that because pass blocking is a lot more difficult. But he is really showing veteran-like play already with some of the reps that we've seen. And for this offensive line as a whole, he's playing really well. Jake Brendel has played very well, according to PFF, the first 2 weeks. Now, he's allowed some pressures, and I don't think he's strong with an anchor, but that's great. Colton McKivitz is also playing really good football. So San Francisco's offensive line, their defense with the youth, big question marks going into the year. So far, so good with both of those areas, though, which is a great sign for San Francisco.
Brian Baldinger weighed in on Bryce Huff, the former Eagle, and he said, "Man, the Eagles blew it. The Eagles blew it by letting Bryce Huff get out." And I don't know if they blew it, but it was also he just wasn't necessarily a fit there, and he has been a fit here. Here's the quote from Baldy. He said, "The Eagles made a mistake. He's not a linebacker. He's a pass rush specialist. He's got to put his hand in the dirt. He's not an outside linebacker like they wanted him to be in Philadelphia. Robert Saleh knows what Huff is. He closed out the game against the Saints like Nick Bosa did the game before. Nick has somebody who can come off the edge opposite him right now. Huff is better than anybody they've had over there at defensive end the last couple of years." And he went on 95.7 the game, the radio to locally here, and said that. It is interesting watching Bryce Huff. He tallied 4 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble on the day. His sack marked his first of the season, gives him 21 in his career. His forced fumble was his first as a member of the Niners, gives him 3 in his career. He just, I really do think it's just as simple as he wasn't a scheme fit, but they had a whole ranking of the top 100 acquisitions of the offseason. He wasn't even in the top 100. I think there was kind of a belief that, hey, you know what, Philly's really good. If he wasn't good there, why is he going to be good elsewhere? But it really kind of shows that, especially on the defensive line, if you have the right guys for the right scheme, you can be prolific. But if you have the wrong guys in the wrong scheme, they can be talented guys, but if you don't utilize them the right way, they can be, incredibly unproductive. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you look at how little Bryce Huff did for the Eagles and how major he is for the Niners.
Yeah, I just sent you a link to my tweet with the screenshot of that game-winning sack in our private chat here on StreamYard if you want to pop that up. But it goes to show you the fast, explosive get-off that he has. But look, the receipts are out there. I mean, you and I were talking about this all the way back in March, how the 49ers should trade for Bryce Huff. He had fallen out of the rotation for the Eagles. He was a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. For the most part last year, he was a complete non-factor. And part of that is because Josh Sweat played really well. Nolan Smith had a big year 1 to year 2 leap. Jalix Hunt turned it on as a 3rd-round pick rookie last year. But also, it's something that you and I discussed and what you just alluded to. He wasn't a scheme fit for the Eagles. Vic Fangio runs that hybrid 3-4. They were trying to use Bryce Huff as a stand-up pass rusher. He is not that. He is a hand-in-the-ground, 3-point stance defensive end who should be playing in a 4-3. And in this wide 9, with the get-off that he has, he can be a serious factor. He is the best defensive end that Nick Bosa has had opposite of him, going all the way back to D Ford. And obviously that didn't last long because D couldn't stay healthy. But similar players with that quick, explosive get-off. I just want everybody to look at this play right here. And this is, again, the game-winning strip sack of Spencer Rattler. The ball is snapped right here. Everybody else on the defensive line is still in their stance. They have not moved. Look at left defensive end. Bryce Huff is already on his way into the backfield. He already read and anticipated this. So this is feel, this is awareness, this is being able to time the snap, and this is that explosive get off with really good bend. The offensive tackle here could have had a perfect pass set. It wouldn't have mattered because Bryce Huff with the bend, with the quickness, was able to beat him from the snap. He is further along than anybody on this play. And this is what the Niners saw. This is what Robert Saleh saw and experienced when he developed him with the New York Jets. A lot of people don't realize Bryce Huff got $34 million in guaranteed money from the Eagles. He's no slouch, right? And a reason for that, he had 67 pressures and 10 sacks in 2023. So Robert Saleh knows how to use the player here. And the Niners are paying him under $8 million this year. He pretty much earned his paycheck being able to win this game and put it on ice in week 2 already. I think he's going to have a highly productive season, and they gave up a 5th-round pick, which can become a 4th. This is a highway robbery type of move for San Francisco, and it could really alter their season. But this is just stupid and silly right here with that screenshot.
Yeah, no, it's a great screenshot by you. And if you look closely at it, who's the second guy who's
Bosa.
It's Bosa.
At defensive tackle, by the way.
Yeah, at defensive tackle. And then is that Sam Aquinu maybe off his outside
to
shoulder?
His right, and then Mikel Williams is the other defensive tackle.
Yeah, I mean, what an unbelievable group they have up front here. But yes, Huff, and it's interesting too. And I was talking to one of the 49er defensive coaches earlier this year, and one of the other reasons they felt like he struggled was the severe kind of difference between the way he lines up and a way a 3-4 outside linebacker would stand there in a 2-point stance. A 2-point stance, you're standing up. He's not in a 3-point stance. He's in a 4-point stance.
Yeah.
Bryce Huff gets in a 4-point stance, and he gets really, really low. And if you say, what's his game? His game is his first 3 steps are choreographed to such a level, and his get off is so explosive that's the key to his game. I mean, you're seeing it literally right here. He is a solid he's probably a solid yard in front of every other guy. And the tackle here barely gets a finger on him.
Yep.
Barely gets a finger on him. Almost to the point where he's kind of pushing Huff towards the quarterback because the angle that he actually connects with him on, Huff's already gone by.
Yeah.
So it's been an amazing addition for the 49ers, and he looks like a guy who could make a huge impact on the 49ers going forward. What do you think the rush plan is going to be for Kyler Murray? Kyler Murray, I was looking at some of the numbers today. This is pretty interesting. Kyler Murray has averaged 52.8 rush yards against the Niners. He's 4-4 in 8 career starts, but he's 3-1 in the last 4.
A sweep last year.
Yeah, including a sweep last year. And to me, it seems like how they rush him, Chase, is going to be a major factor in this game because last year he ran for 50 yards right by Devondre Campbell. They gave him a run lane. He took it to the house. I mean, some quarterbacks, you give him a rush lane, they're going to rush for 15 yards. You give this guy a rush lane and he will house call you. So what do you think? I mean, to me, they have to rush in unison. You can't play too many games. You can't give him real decisive, wide open rush lanes because he'll take them.
Yeah, I talked about this a lot on the 49ers report this week, especially in our Niners-Cardinals preview, which is up on the channel. But, yeah, Kyler Murray has really burned San Francisco a lot. From 2022 to 2024, the Niners have given up the 12th most rushing yards to quarterbacks across the NFL, and it feels like that number should be even higher. I know that they're bringing back Robert Saleh, but quarterbacks have been able to burn them with their feet and legs, partially because of the wide 9. And the wide 9 can be a little bit of a downfall when you're going up against mobile quarterbacks. And so the points that I was making this week, Kyler Murray is a guy who put up more than 500 all-purpose yards and 6 touchdowns against San Francisco last year. On October 5th of last year, when the Niners blew a 23-10 lead, they got blanked in the second half, first of all, but the opening touchdown of the game was a Kyler Murray 50-yard run. And Talanoa Hufanga kind of over-pursued it. And so tackling is going to be really important just against Kyler, but against the Cardinals in total, Trey McBride is really good picking up yards after the catch. They're also a very physical running team with James Conner and Trey Benson. But the plan against Kyler, you have to have disciplined pass rush lanes, and you have to have pass rush lane integrity. And sometimes when you're running the wide 9 and you have your front 4 spaced out so much, their mentality is to get off the ball, get upfield, and be aggressive, pin their ears back at after the quarterback. But when you do that and you get upfield in a wide 9, what does it lead to? If you can't immediately get to the quarterback, wide open running lanes for the quarterback. And so Kyler's a shorter guy. He doesn't necessarily see the field all that well. When he feels that rush get upfield, it actually makes his job pretty easy because he can see those wide open lanes and he's able to exploit those. And then that second level is sometimes left vacant because the linebackers are having to cover running backs, tight ends, or wide receivers. And so those are 10 immediate easy yards for Kyler Murray. You're going to have to set the edge. You're going to have to contain him within the pocket. Maybe from time to time you run some twists and stunts up front so that you don't have those wide open running lanes for Kyler Murray to kind of attack. And so he's a very difficult player to defend. Once he feels the pocket collapse, he wants to use his feet to run to his right and left because, one, he's short. And so if his vision line is blurred, he just doesn't see the middle of the field all that well. So he'll try to run to his right to create plays downfield with his arm, if nothing's there with his feet, which is why you got to set the edge. And then you just have to be disciplined in your pass rush lanes, because if you're not, and there are some wide open lanes, I mean, you're just making Kyler's job so easy. I know Nick Bosa, Robert Saleh said they have a plan for Kyler, some tricks up their sleeve. I'm very interested to see how they attack Kyler. And where Robert Saleh deserves a lot of credit, he's playing a lot of cover 1 this year. We're seeing him get very creative and exotic. I love how he's using players. Jier Brown as a big nickel, Mikel Williams, Nick Bosa at defensive tackle, using this NASCAR lightning package, whatever you want to call it, dialing up a corner blitz for Upton Stout because you're tapping into his strengths. You're playing into the hands and the favor of a guy like Marquise Siegel. But what you also have to give credit to Saleh for, his ability to really adapt with the modern nuances of how offensive football is being played. And so how the Niners defend Kyler now will be different than how they've tried to defend Kyler in the past.
Yeah, no question about it. And if you don't think there's a difference between Sorensen and Saleh, the Niners last year finished 28th in yards after the catch EPA allowed under Sorensen. 2 games in, the Niners defense this year sits number 1 in the NFL at defending yards after the catch EPA.
Their defensive DVOA is better than the offensive DVOA. So
right. I mean, a lot of people thought the Niners defense was going to be a problem spot, and it looks like it's not.
Yeah.
We should tell you that we're about 22 minutes into our live stream. Chase is hanging out on a Friday. I'll be off to practice in a bit. 49er Football on the Krueger Show this year is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. So it's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and of course Sleeper picks for daily fantasy, where you choose between 2 to 8 players, pregame or live, and pick more or less on their stat projections. And if you're new to it, use the promo code Larry. You'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit. The link's right there in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, we're going to do a quick lineup here for the week on Sleeper. And I'm loving the ease of using the Sleeper app. It's really easy. All right, let's go with Kyler. See what Kyler's got here. Do you have a strong conviction on Kyler? He's averaged 52.8 rush yards against the Niners, and he only needs 28.5 rush yards here to be more. I like more. Give me Kyler to get 29, at least 29. That's not even half of his average. So, or a little bit more than half.
He popped a 50-yarder the first matchup last year. So
exactly, we've seen him do it. So there's one. How about Trey McBride? The one thing I've seen, talking to some of the people from Arizona, they said they're using Zay Jones and Michael Wilson on these go routes with the intent to run off the coverage and to throw it underneath to the tight end and to Marvin Harrison Jr. So I could see McBride with an anytime touchdown. It seems like he seems like a real likely guy to score.
Yeah, they're not targeting their wide receivers a lot. I think Marvin Harrison has the most receptions among wide receivers, and it's 6 through 2 games. So the passing offense, it's running through McBride.
Yeah. So let's go more than a half touchdown there. And then let's go to CMC. Let's see what CMC's got cooking here. Christian, first week they used him a lot as a runner. Second week they used him a lot as a receiver. What do you think of maybe the combined, like not really sure which direction they're going to go, but he's had great numbers against the Cardinals. It's the home opener. How about the combined rushing receiving total?
All purpose is at 110.5.
Yeah, 110.5 for all purpose.
Yeah, he's been over 100 the first 2 games. I like the more there.
Yeah. So let's go more on the all purpose there. And we'll take our chances. Let's see what it looks like. Three-legged parlay makes us 37.05. 37.05. I like that. Big thanks to Sleeper. Remember, use the code Larry for 100% deposit match up to $100. Links right in the description. Terms apply. Helps support the show and gets you rolling on the #1 sports app in America, Sleeper. And thanks to Sleeper for sponsoring the Krueger Show. Jier Brown, the former Penn State safety, a lot of people are down on him. He had a great rookie year under Steve Wilkes. He kind of regressed after that. Last week, they played him as the big nickel. And when Eric Branch went up to him to discuss it with him, he said, "Hey, man, I'm a top 5 safety in the league. And, this is, I'm just trying to help out the team and play in this spot." But, he said, he says, "I know for sure I'm one of the best safeties in the league, top 5, if anything, in the league. This has nothing to do with me moving from safety. This is just being a football player. Moving down to the big nickel is a showcase of my many talents." Obviously, he's getting a little defensive there. And I know there are people that would laugh at that. "Oh my God, he's a top 5 safety in the league. He's nowhere close." And, this and that. But I like this player. I think this is a much better player than 49ers currently. Then he's not held in the same high regard currently by Niner fans because he's kind of in a low ebb of his career. But I like Jier. He was on the Bruce Feldman's freaks list. He's strong as heck. He was an all-state basketball player. He's the New Jersey steals leader. He's got a great first step. I just think it's about finding the right role for him. And I kind of like him in this big nickel role where he's got coverage ability that's greater than that of your average linebacker, and yet he's playing linebacker. And I think he's got the physicality to do it. I think it's a good fit. And what do you think? I mean, Mustafa eventually is going to come back. Siegel and Mustafa will be the starters. So Brown may have to go elsewhere to get his big payday, but I like the idea of utilizing the big nickel. It's another creative element by Saleh. And I thought he looked really good playing it last week.
Yeah, before covering the Niners, my last job, I covered Penn State football. And so growing up in Pennsylvania, covering Penn State football professionally, very familiar with the program. That's kind of my college football program because I grew up in the Philly area and there aren't a lot of good college football programs in the Northeast. Plus, I went to Temple University, and that's more of a basketball school, even though I was there when Matt Rule was there for that program's turnaround. But, coming out of Penn State, I really like Jier Brown as a player, and I wanted the Niners to take him in the draft, frankly. I had him on a couple of my mock drafts to San Francisco. They had a safety need because you had a feeling, okay, Deshaun Gibson, how long is he going to be able to play realistically, even though he was really good once he went to the Niners with this first stint. But Jier Brown was a player at Penn State who was versatile. And he was all around the field, and he had a lot of really good ball production and really good instincts and always found himself around the ball. I thought in 2023, his rookie year, when he stepped in for Talanoa Hufanga, he played really, really well. And I think that Steve Wilkes helped him there. Steve Wilkes, I know, isn't looked at in the best light among Niner fans, but he has a defensive back background, and I thought he had Jier Brown playing at a really good level, replacing an all-pro in Hufanga. And Jier Brown even intercepted Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Last year, there's no doubt, he struggled a little bit. In the pre-draft process, he didn't run all that well, but he's a built athlete who's big, who I think at times is a pretty smart football player. Last year, though, he had some lapses mentally, and I also thought that he over-pursued at times, and he whiffed on some guys that led to explosive plays. I don't think him being used in a versatile way is a bad thing. In fact, I think it's a good thing. I think if you're a safety who can be used all around the field as a little bit of a chess piece. That's what the Niners did with Talanoa Hufanga. I think it's an advantage. And so I don't think people should be knocking Jier Brown. Now, he played 2 snaps week 1. He played 7 snaps week 2. So it's still not like he's playing a lot at that big nickel spot. And once Malik Mustafa comes back, he's going to be behind Mustafa, Marquise Siegel, and Jason Pinnock. So I'm not sure how often he's going to be able to play. But going into the year, I had said, look, because the Niners have a little bit of a logjam at safety, could they use Jier Brown as that big nickel and that hybrid linebacker? Because I do think he's good around the line of scrimmage. Again, this is something that Nick Sorensen would never think of. This is something that Robert Saleh has implemented. And I think it's something that I want to see more of. Luke Gifford on the field, yeah, you probably don't want him playing that many snaps, right? Jier Brown on the field instead of him playing that big nickel spot. I mean, he was new to doing that, and he nearly had an interception of Spencer Rattler, who otherwise played a really good game. And so I just like how Saleh is utilizing his defensive personnel. And this is another example of just finding a way to cater to your personnel, get talented players on the field, and use Jier Brown in a way where he can be effective. And that's what Saleh did with Brown last week. Do I think he's a top 5 safety in the league? No. I appreciate the confidence. Yes, I agree with Larry that I think he's going to have to go somewhere else to get more snaps, but I do like him in that role because he's a better player the closer he gets to the line of scrimmage.
The quarterback question is one that will be probably answered later today. Both Mack Jones and Brock Purdy spoke yesterday at the podium after practice. What do you think? I mean, how would you play your hand of cards if you're the 49ers? Do you make Purdy the one and start him? He might be chomping at the bit to get back out there, especially after watching how well Mack played. Do you go with Mack again and use Purdy as the number 2, as the backup? Or do you do what they did last week and, you make Mack the 1 and you make Adrian Martinez the 2 and you let Purdy be the emergency 3? How would you play your hand? Lynch seemed to make it sound on KMBR like all options are available. I watched practice. I saw Mack looking 100% and Brock looking less than 100%. So I'd probably go with Mack. Well, what do you think they'll do? What would you do?
Probably some competitive maneuvering here by San Francisco. You're going up against an Arizona team that is also 2-0. This is a sneaky big game inside the NFC West. It's a division that I think is going to be close, and it's probably going to be decided in December or January because I think all of these teams are very closely contested. And frankly, I think all of these ball clubs inside this division are very solid to very good with lots of potential to do some damage in the NFC playoff picture. And so I think the Niners a little bit, maybe trying to confuse Arizona, not really play their hand as far as which quarterback Arizona is going to go up against and plan for. But I think the smart play here, start Mack Jones. He showed last week that he can play well in Kyle Shanahan's offense. He showed that the Niners can win with him at quarterback. And I love how Brock Purdy has that competitive fire. And I love how he has that drive. And he probably saw Mack play well on the road against the Saints and throw for 3 touchdowns. And he's saying, man, I got to get back on the field. I'm the franchise quarterback. I don't want him to go out there, ball out again in week 3. And then people question if I'm the guy for this football team. But you can't mess around with this turf toe injury. I mean, we saw it last week with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had a more severe form of turf toe. He has to get surgery. He's out until December. And so I would err on the side of caution here. Plus, I don't want a less than 100% Purdy out there. His ability to use his feet and his legs to extend plays and create plays is something that makes this offense really click and makes this offense better. And so if he's without that and he's just a statue in the pocket, he's not the best quarterback that he can be. And so I'm running Mack Jones out there again. I'm letting Purdy heal again. And then you bring him back against a Jags team in week 4 that you should easily beat at home, if not week 4, Thursday night, in a game where you'll really need him against the Rams on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I'm playing Mack. There's no doubt. I don't think Purdy's 100%, and I'm playing Mack. Let me ask you this. How good is Mack Jones? Do we know how good he is? He was a Pro Bowler as a rookie. Then he had Matt Patricia, a defensive coach, as his offensive coordinator. That was a train wreck in year 2. Then he got Bill O'Brien, who was an offensive coach, but he also had terrible receivers. Then he's backing up Trevor Lawrence for a year in Jacksonville, and now he's here. So I kind of feel like we don't really know who Mack is, and Kyle always seemed to be very confident that Mack Jones was a great fit for his offense, and then last week we kind of all saw it. How do you think Mack Jones is a good fit for this offense? And if so, why? And do you think that what we saw last week is how Mack Jones is going to play with the Niners, or was it just a hot start?
Over time, there's been so much Kyle Shanahan slander, and I think people have gone overboard with slandering him. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better coach if you were to fire and move on from him. And I thought that week 2 against the New Orleans Saints on the road, you saw why Kyle Shanahan is an elite coach and why he's highly regarded across every NFL circle. I get he hasn't won the Super Bowl. I get that he's choked in some big games. It's weird to me that people dock him for the Falcons losing the Super Bowl when he wasn't even the head coach, but people can do you and whatever. But he had Mack Jones ready to play. He had Mack Jones prepared. And this is what people talk about when you hear the term quarterback whisperer, right? Kyle Shanahan did a great job of allowing Mack Jones to succeed and excel in his offense. And think about the situations that Mack was in prior to San Francisco. Nothing like the situation that he's currently in with the Niners. The New England Patriots had no offensive skill players who were quality players when Mack Jones was there. Can you believe this, that at one point, Matt Patricia was the offensive coordinator for Mack Jones? I mean, what a joke. And Bill Belichick has never been a savvy offensive mind, right? And he was kind of cooked by the end of his Patriots tenure. Then Mack goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it's a really bad situation again. Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson were dead men walking. And so he comes to the Niners. He completes passes to 8 different receivers. He's throwing with such great touch, able to layer footballs in there all throughout the afternoon. He excels on third downs. He throws 3 touchdowns. I thought he played as well as he could have, given the circumstances and given the spot. And that's what happens when you have an elite game planner, an elite head coach, play caller, and play designer, but a guy who understands the quarterback position really well in Kyle Shanahan, who happened to play wide receiver. But Steve Young also said something awesome, I believe, on KNBR when he was like, this is the best situation for any quarterback in the NFL to go to because Kyle Shanahan will have you prepared. That's coming from Steve Young. I share that same sentiment. Mack doesn't play that game if it's not for Kyle Shanahan helping him and calling that game the way that he did. So I was highly, highly impressed with what Mack did, especially in some big spots on third downs, in the red zone when the game was really close, and him throwing with touch, timing, accuracy, layering throws, just big boy type shit. The end of the half drive right before recess was just great quarterbacking. And you saw why Kyle liked him in the pre-draft. You saw why Kyle wanted to bring him back, because he thought Mack was a guy who could play point guard, distribute the rock, get the ball out on time and accurately, allowing players to pick up yards after the catch. It all came to fruition against New Orleans, and hopefully we get to see it again against Arizona, because I don't want to see an injured Brock Purdy out there, because I think he will hinder the offense if he's hurt.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of the major media sources come out of the Northeast, and if you fail in the Northeast, it's like it's like almost like a double failure. You know, it's like if Bryce Huff wasn't very good with the Eagles, it was like, well, he's still pretty good, but nobody really wanted him after that because it was like, hey, he's no good. Mack Jones failed the last couple of years, you know, before Jacksonville in New England. You know, they're 50 miles away from ESPN's campus, so everybody feels like, oh, they got a pretty good idea of what Mack is, and now here he is, and he looks, now granted, he looks like he understands his career is hanging in the balance. He's playing with urgency. He's trying to make the most of it, but he's having a lot of success. Now, I agree that Mack is going to play. We'll find out definitively later today. Arizona has allowed the 7th most passing yards per game of any team in the NFL. They're giving up 255.5 passing yards per game. Is this a pass plan, or is this a run plan? Is this a throw it to your backs plan? I'd love to see Brian Robinson get going. I wouldn't mind seeing a Garendo appearance every now and then. I'd like to see the Niners, maybe run the ball a little bit and show that they can run it. They haven't really done that yet. They've run for, 3 something a carry. What do you think the game plan is going to be for Shanahan going up against Arizona here in week 3?
Well, you got to protect like you did against New Orleans. And I thought that San Francisco protected so well. And Mack Jones, a completely different quarterback when he's blitzed as compared to when he's not blitzed, when he's under pressure compared to when he's not under pressure. And San Francisco really executed a flawless game plan. And how about the confidence that Shanahan showed in Mack Jones as he threw it 23 times in the first half of that game? And so going up against this Arizona team, that's the foundation. You have to protect. This Cardinals defensive line is really good. They play violent. They play physical. They added Josh Sweat, former Eagle, this offseason, who had a career year under Jonathan Gannon when they were linked up with the Philadelphia Eagles a couple of years ago when Gannon was the DC. And I just like the style in which they play with. They really swarm and get after the quarterback with a lot of aggression. And so they're going to try to really control the game with their front going up against this Niners offensive line. If San Francisco can't protect in the pass game, it can end up being a long day, especially if Mack Jones is the quarterback because he doesn't have mobility there. So I think that's going to be really important. How do you negate a really good pass rush? Get rid of the ball quickly, on time, accurately. And so I think that's another key for San Francisco here. John Lynch made a really good point the other day in saying that the Niners' lack of success running it is because they're going up against a bunch of heavy boxes. Can San Francisco find a way to really mitigate that? Can they spread the field out a little bit more so that they can have more success running it so that teams don't have such heavy boxes? I think Christian McCaffrey, he's ran the ball efficiently, but not explosively because the explosive plays haven't been there. It's hard when it's a numbers game when there are so many guys in the box, but that's what I would do in the pass game. And then if you're able to do that and neutralize the pass rush, naturally, hopefully the run game can open up a little bit.
You mentioned, Sweat. To me, if there's the key in this game is him. Sweat and Browning are in there, what I would call super prime. They've combined for 19 pressures in the first 2 games. So to me, everything that the Niners do starts right there. Can you block Sweat? Can you block Browning? Can you keep those guys out of the backfield? Browning is undersized. He's a linebacker who's converted to defensive end. Sweat is in a lot of ways the prototype. He had a great year last year. He had a great playoff, great Super Bowl, and signed for big money in Arizona. And I'm sure Gannon's thrilled to have him there. So to me, that's where this defense, Calais Campbell's still a force up front, but they're beat up in the secondary. And but if they can't block Sweat and Browning, it could be a very, very long day at the office. Give me your prediction on what you think the final score is going to be in this thing. What are you looking at? You think it's going to be high scoring, low scoring? Over-unders at 44.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game just because I think both of these defenses are really good, and I think it's going to take some time for the offenses to kind of feel out what the defenses are doing and how they're going to respond with their game plan in game with the adjustments that they make going up against these defenses. And so I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think the prediction that I had when I did my preview was like 25-22. And so I think that over under, Vegas always knows it's going to be somewhere right around that. I don't think that it's going to be like a 17-13 game, but I don't think it's going to be, 35-30. I think it's going to be in the mid-20s, and I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. And once again, I think San Francisco is going to be able to close this game out like they have the first 2 games of the year, which is something they couldn't do all of last year in 2024.
Yeah, no, I like a low scoring game, but I'm thinking maybe 24-21 49ers, maybe 24-17. Let's hit our supers, but we're brought to you by Habbas Law, 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. Today's show sponsored by Habbas Law. For more than 40 years, Omar Habbas and his son Tarek have been standing up for people in the Bay Area. They're fierce, relentless attorneys. They don't back down until justice is done. Insurance companies play this game where they don't want to pay you when you get into an accident. These guys make sure they pay. They know the playbook because they've been battling and beating insurance companies for decades. So they've partnered with the Giants, with San Jose State, with Santa Clara, with the Sharks, the Earthquakes. They're very much rooted here in Northern California. So if you need someone in your corner, call the firm insurance companies. Hope you never call Habbas Law. They will fight to make it right. Visit them on the web at habbaslaw.com, HABBAS law.com, 1-800-INJURED. And on that note, let's hit a couple of our supers. We're going to have a shortened version of the show today because we've got practice coming up here. Kevin Wood says he just became a YouTube member.
Let's go, Kevin.
There you go. Kevin Wood, welcome aboard, bro. And by the way, it was awesome. All the people in New Orleans who were fans of the stream, ran into some people out of the blue. Just a really good time in New Orleans. Thanks to all the people who came up to us. Marcus Ralph says, let's effing go. Chase and Krug on a Friday. Whatever happened to CJ West? Do you think J-Dub will take over the wide receiver core, Jordan Watkins? And I'm low-key excited to see
Demarcus Robinson
back. Yeah. Well, Robinson, I think, is going to be a real factor for sure. Watkins, I know, is going to be a factor. It's just a matter of when can he get healthy and get out there. And as far as CJ West, I talked to him yesterday in the locker room. We're going to play it tonight on Niners Nightly. He's really excited. They're slow playing their D linemen up front. I think him and Collins only had 16 combined snaps in week 1. West is playing in a rotation. He's learning. There's a lot to learn. It's a technique-rich spot, but fear not. I mean, they got the right guy in CJ West. It's just a matter of time before he really starts to fire. So, yeah, I think CJ West is going to wind up being a very, very good 49er before it's all said and done. All right, that is going to do it for us. Thanks to Chase. Thanks to our sponsors. Niners practice is coming up. Chase, you've got the live watch stream on game day. Tell people anything that you have between now and then, in addition to the watch stream. What do you got cooking Friday and Saturday?
Yeah, hitting everybody with 1 or 2 long form shows every single day on the channel, which can range anywhere from, 10 to 30 minutes. And so we'll have coverage in the lead up to kickoff, and then we'll be live for another watch party. We're doing over 100,000 views on all of them. And I like it to be a really fun, interactive place to watch the game. I kind of say it's the best place to experience a game day outside of being at the game. And then we'll be live for a post-game show and do an instant reaction and all that stuff. So the coverage never stops. And I appreciate the support on the 49ers Report, and then obviously for Larry here on the Krug Show.
Yeah, everybody hit like and subscribe on both spots. The 49er Report on Chat Sports does an amazing job. Always great to chat with you, and we'll do it again next week. Thanks to all of you guys. Have a great Friday. Go Niners. Hopefully they run to 3-0, and we got a lot more to talk about next week. For Chase, I'm Larry. Have a great rest of your Friday.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what